Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to entitled people, where people truly believe in their minds the universe revolves around them and no one else matters. And in today's episode, strap yourselves in because it's a wild one. We've got Karens calling 911 for the most ridiculous reasons, attacking pets, throwing tantrums over dying employees, and one OP tells a story about the time a Karen lets her son trash OP's house while they're gone on vacation. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So I'm a paramedic here, and we of course respond to ridiculous calls all the time. But this one happened a few days ago. We were dispatched at 8 a.m. for a quote, distraught 19-year-old female, unknown medical problem. We show up to an off-campus apartment complex. We're met at the door by this typical college student. Obviously, she's hungover. The cast is me, an annoyed paramedic who hasn't gotten her morning coffee, and this entitled college student. I start off by saying, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. What seems to be the problem?" The girl responds, "Yeah, I'm really hungover, and I have an exam in like 4 hours. And I have a headache, and I'm dehydrated, and I feel like I'm gonna puke." I respond, yeah, that sounds like a hangover. Let me check your vitals." And here's a shocker. They were totally normal. She then says to me, "I need you to fix this. I have class and my professor doesn't do makeup exams." I respond, "I'm really not sure what you want me to do about it. Did you take Tylenol and drink Gatorade or tons of water or even eat something? You know, like any of the things any normal person who's hungover would try?" The girl responds, "No, I don't have Gatorade or Tylenol, and I don't feel like running to the store. Can't you just give me an IV and fix it?" To that, I respond, no, because you know this isn't a medical emergency, which 911 is generally for. How would you feel if your family member was dying and you called 911 and no paramedic was available because I'm here dealing with this stupidity? The girl then says to me, "It doesn't matter. They're old and gonna die anyways. I need you to fix this right now. I have class and an exam. You're here, so just fix it. Give me an IV." To that, I respond and say, "Yeah, no. Either drink water or get somebody to bring you Tylenol or Gatorade. Or maybe don't go and party the night before a big exam. This is no way a medical emergency. And even if I had nothing better to do than babysit you while I gave you IV fluids and anti-nausea meds, I wouldn't. People have actual emergencies and they need me, so I'm out." That's when the girl says, "Fine, I'll just call back and tell them I'm dying and you have to come back and help me." I respond, "Go right ahead. I won't be back, but the police will, to arrest and fine you for abuse of 911. And I'm willing to bet campus police will get involved since you're admittedly still drunk and hungover and underage. But you do you." Cue the shocked face. The entitled bitch did not call back. But she did pull a Karen though, and she called my boss to complain that I wouldn't fix her hangover with an IV. It's all good though, my boss just laughed. And after explaining the consequences of abuse of 911 and the academic repercussions if we got campus police involved, I told her to buy Gatorade and Tylenol and to stop being a dumbass. I'm sure I'll be back there again in a few days after this weekend's upcoming parties. You know, sometimes I just read a frickin' story that baffles me, guys. Like, I would never dare in a million years to call 911 if it wasn't life or death. And yet, there's people out there that I've read that call 911 for groceries, which I thought was wild. And now this, using a paramedic to administer an IV drip for a hangover. That's a new one. With that said, OP felt they had to come back into the comments to add this edit right here. OP says, "For all my paragods saying that in their state it's abandonment and that my boss/medical director wouldn't say that or approve, my boss is my medical director." I did note that her chief complaint was a hangover, headache, nausea, and dehydration. She admitted excessive alcohol usage the evening prior. She had no other complaints, and her vitals were normal, and she had no desire for transport. She just wanted IV fluids, telling me, just like you see on the commercials in Vegas and places for the IV hangover helpers. She didn't want transport because that would have meant missing the exam, which she didn't want to do in the first place. She was fully capable of making decisions for a refusal, and she had a responsible person present. And I called and ran the refusal by the doctor, who thought it was just as stupid as I did. So no, I'm not a negligent paramedic. Just didn't think people really wanted a whole trip sheet to critique. So you can save your self-righteous paragod that's patient abandonment speeches. Also, I'm aware of the contraindication of Tylenol. Taking it once or twice 8 hours after you stop drinking won't kill your liver. I wasn't giving it to her. I just asked if she had it or tried it. So this happened a week before Easter Sunday. The store had just opened up, so there's only a few customers in the store, along with me and 5 other employees. 2 are occupied with the registers, and the rest of us are in the freezers or back rooms, doing the early morning prep for the day. That's when one of the meat-cutting employees collapses. The meat manager comes out and finds the meat cutter with a purple face and blood around his head. He leaps into action and pages for help. He calls an ambulance and then goes to our coworker's aid. Meanwhile, there's an older lady nearby, the Karen, who doesn't care for this dying man. Karen stands on her tippy toes to see over the deli counter, and she screams, "Hey, someone, I need a ham." The meat manager ignores her, trying to revive the meat cutter. Karen then says, "Don't you dare ignore me. You didn't hear me. I need a ham." I come rushing up at this point, having heard the commotion over the intercom, as well as the yelling woman. I go up to the customer and try to wave her off. The store manager rushes over at this time too, along with another customer who's a registered nurse. The nurse goes to the falling man's aid and tries to help revive him. I tell Karen, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we can't get a ham for you right now. We have an injured man who needs our attention." Karen says, "Listen, I'm late and I don't care. I'm the customer and I want my ham. Can't someone just grab it for me? There's like 3 of you back there." At this point, I try to hustle her away, asking her to do the rest of her shopping and I'll get a ham for her later. I just want this woman gone, but she won't budge. The others are busy with our coworker, and she screams, "No, I will not leave. I want to pick out my ham and I need it right now. You're all useless." At this point, the meat manager yells at Karen saying, "My friend is dying." And the store manager picks up the heaviest ham he can reach and he throws it right at Karen saying, "There, have your dumb ham." To which Karen responds, "I'm going to make a complaint about you all." The woman then leaves the ham on the floor. The paramedics eventually arrived, but it's too late. Our coworker died that day. Apparently, our coworker had a heart attack and he fell to the ground. He was on the floor for 5 minutes before the meat manager found him. Oh, and that lady did indeed lodge a complaint about our conduct, and we all got in trouble with corporate for not being more accommodating to her needs. I lost all faith in humanity that day. A ham was worth more to those people than a dying man, our good friend. Yeah, why am I not shocked at the audacity of this woman? Like, some people are literally all about themselves. Who cares about others when I need my things? Like, with all the entitled stories I've read, once in a while I'll come across a post like this and it really has my jaw dropping. Like, some people really don't see workers as human, I swear. And guys, if you thought that was bad, this person shares their comment that says, "I used to work in retail, and one night we had a regular special needs customer have a seizure right at the front doorway. Of course, we had a few Karens demanding we ignore the situation and help them, as well as a group of thugs take advantage of the situation by loading up their pants with merchandise and running out. My faith in humanity was already pretty shaky, but that sealed the deal. Yeah, again, some people truly only care about themselves, and if you guys thought that was a head shaker, this next post does not get any better. So this was a few years ago, but it never fails to aggravate me. I used to work as a receptionist at a fairly busy medical clinic. It was the day before a major holiday, so the mood was jolly, and it was uncharacteristically slow that day in the office. We had a patient and his wife no-show in the morning. No phone call, no reschedule, no nothing. Naturally, after about half an hour, their appointment's canceled. Things are running smoothly until we see a patient who was recently released from the hospital and is following up with us. They look extremely unwell. By this point, my spidey senses are tingling that something's about to go down. Mid-doctor's visit, the patient suddenly loses consciousness and begins coding. They were having a cardiac arrest. At this point, everything is in chaos. The doctor and medical assistant are performing CPR, while I'm on the phone, frantically trying to get EMS out there as soon as possible. The spouse is crying and screaming, and the patients are slowly trickling in to witness all of this in plain sight. Naturally, most people were kind and concerned, giving us space to work, silently signing their names and taking a seat. Of course, it's during all of this frenzy that Karen walks in. As I'm finishing up my emergency call, she begins tapping repeatedly on the glass. She says, "Hey, we're here for our appointment. My name's so-and-so, and I hope the wait isn't gonna be very long. Also, it's very rude that you were on the phone when we walked in." I respond and say, "I apologize. As you can see, we're currently in the middle of an emergency. Also, your appointment was over 2 hours ago. It's been canceled." Karen says, "Yeah, I know we're late, but can't you guys just fit us in somewhere? I mean, we're already here right now. Why can't we have that person who's dying on the floor's appointment? They aren't gonna be using it." And yes, this was Karen's actual words. I'm thinking, what the F? And I respond, "Yeah, that's not how this works. Your appointment's canceled and you're gonna have to reschedule for another day. We're currently dealing with a life or death emergency." Karen says, "Wow, this is such BS. Unbelievable. You guys could have squeezed us in this whole time. It would take like 5 minutes tops. The doctor could have seen us while the paramedics are handling the other person. You all just wasted our time. We're never coming back to your office." And thank God, as long as I worked there, I never did see that person again. Oh, and thankfully, our patient survived and they're doing great. So for context, we lived across the street from this woman for about 6 years. We've never had a problem with her. The woman was actually very kind until the day she became a Karen. The woman would always put really cute outfits on her dog, so obviously we knew her. So that said, last year, we got our dog, and she was the most playful puppy you could ever meet. The only problem she really had was the fact that she would run up to people and just assume they wanted to play. By this, I would mean she would start doing that little tappy, jumpy thing that dogs do when they're excited. She would never jump on people or bite though. The first encounter we had with Karen with our dog was when she was about 3 months old. Our dog ran up to Karen to say hi when she was walking past. At this point in time, my dog was about the same size as her dog. She wasn't on a leash because we were watching her in the front yard. Well, upon seeing my dog run up to her, Karen immediately pulls out pepper spray and she aimed it at my dog. Luckily, my mom was there and she confronts her. My mom apologizes and told her don't touch our dog and definitely don't pepper spray our dog. It was like a switch flipped. This woman went from a nice neighbor to being really mean. She gave my mom a threat that I can't really remember too well, but she'd continue to go down the same route for the next year. Nothing really exciting happened for about a year after that. Our dog grew and she was still very playful. She's now everyone's favorite dog on the block. It wasn't until I got home one day and I sat in my car. I saw Karen walking past with her dog, holding a bottle of pepper spray in her hand. My dog's outside with my mom, and we don't expect our dog to run up to the woman. My dog's about 6 feet away from her safely, just doing her little dog tapping thing with her feet. And this woman just targets and sprays my dog. My dog lets out a yelp, and she starts running in circles. Me, being the crazy dog mom I am, run up to the woman and I push her and tell her not to pepper spray my dog. Immediately, she starts pepper spraying me. And that's when I, a 20-year-old woman, start to restrain this 60-year-old woman, as she uses the rest of her pepper spray on me, trying to aim for my dog. After emptying the whole thing, she drops herself to the ground, while I'm running to my dog, and she's pretending she was assaulted by me pretty bad. The cops did end up coming, as another neighbor called, and they end up telling me that she likes to pepper spray other people's dogs if they walk too close to her. That's what she was known for in the neighborhood, and she's been charged before. They end up sending her home and me back into my house after that happened, and the cops gave me a phone number just in case I needed to get a hold of them. I'm glad it ended the way it did, but it's so heartbreaking to see people really wanting to hurt other animals, especially with pepper spray. I don't want to say she was in the wrong for getting scared of my dog, but she knows from experience that my dog's not trying to hurt her or her dog. My dog's just excitable. My dog was being watched by my mom, and usually she listens to her, so this was unexpected. I'm not sure if she got charged with animal abuse, but I do know for a fact that she also ends up pepper spraying her dog in the process of spraying me. Her poor dog and mine were just yelping in pain for 15 minutes, and it was horrible to hear. Jeez frickin' Louise. Guys, it really bothers me that the woman was known for pepper spraying dogs and people and has been charged before, and the cops just sent her home. Like, you're not gonna arrest her? Like, I don't know how it works, but is that what happens, guys? When you have a psycho in your neighborhood, can they just get away with stuff like that? Also, reading this post, I was thinking Opie had like a giant Rottweiler or pit bull or something. But Opie states in the comments that Karen was allegedly terrified by her border collie. And I love this person's comment right here. They post what I'm sure a lot of you would be thinking if you were in Opie's situation. This person says she's lucky she didn't get her butt beat. I don't give an F how old you are. If you hurt my dog that I've raised since he was a little pup, these hands become E for everyone. So I was heading home from a vacation in North Carolina. And long story short, this Karen is speeding in an intersection, and she ends up hitting my car, which completely flips it over. I end up having to be pulled from the sunroof of my car because with a broken leg, I couldn't really get out myself. Karen then starts freaking out when I'm literally getting glass pulled out of my arm. She dramatically throws herself from her car, and she starts screaming in pain and cursing at me while holding her leg and rolling around. But as soon as the paramedic notices her, she magically stops wailing. After a brief examination, the paramedic simply tells her, "You're fine." Karen immediately starts to argue, but after she realizes her defeat, she storms over to me in a huff. The conversation went kind of like this. She screams at me and says, "You hit my car and you've ruined my kid's day." I respond, I did because last I recall, you hit me. The paramedic stops her right there and says, "Ma'am, could you please leave her alone? The officers will talk to you in a bit and you can tell them there." I said, "And you've already proven to be delusional from your little broken leg stunt." Karen says, "Delusional? You're the one faking it. I'm the victim here." At this point, Karen then decides it's a good idea to pull me out of my chair and get me to stand on my broken leg with no warning whatsoever. As soon as she lets go of my wrist, I stumble back, fall on my chair, and hit my head on the pavement. I'm really not sure what happened next, since I was dazed from bashing my head on the pavement. But because of all the yelling, I'm suing all of you. I'm pretty sure the woman was arrested on the account of assault. I was brought to the hospital. I end up spending an extra 2 days in North Carolina because I couldn't drive due to my broken leg, a concussion, and my totaled car. I had to be picked up by a friend/coworker. I'm currently working with my lawyer on pressing charges against this Karen. So here's a little backstory. I live in a really nice and wealthy neighborhood where my neighbors are kind of messed up. The husbands drink and cheat on their wives, and stay-at-home wives cheat on their husbands. Children become entitled, and everyone pretty much hates each other. I was also friends with my neighbor, who we'll call Brian. Brian worked in finances, and he was loaded. About a year ago, Brian's wife informs me that Brian often yelled at her and her son a lot, and would often get physical with their son. Oh, and by the way, their son's 24 years old, still living at home, never had a job. The kid was pretty entitled. So I gave her and her son a copy of the key to my house. So if Brian was ever being abusive to either of them, they would have a safe haven. Fast forward to now. Brian's wife divorced him, and she got a lot of his money. Let's call her Annie. Annie's a single mom with more money than she can spend, living with her son. Let's call him Junior. That said, last week, I had to go out of town for business, and since I'm single with no kids and I have some pets, I needed somebody to house sit for me. So I hired Junior to feed my cats for the 3 days I'd be gone. The day I returned, I caught an earlier flight, and I arrived home around 2 p.m., whereas I was supposed to arrive at 10 p.m. I enter my home, and my garage is filled with cigarette smoke. My counter had prescription drugs sitting on it, right next to lines of white drugs. Beer cans and bottles were everywhere. I walk upstairs to my room, and my bedspread is all haywire. The whole upstairs is a mess. Clearly, Junior had a party. I change my clothes, and I decide to see if Junior was still even in the house. I walk downstairs to the theater room, and I catch him making out with a girl. I walk over to chew him out, and I tell both him and his girlfriend to get out of my house and take everything on my counters with him. I then clean my house, air out my garage, sanitize the F out of every single room, because people were in all of my rooms. The next day, I receive a text from his mom. She says, "Hey, so Junior told me that you were really mean to him when you got back. Why?" Well, that's when I explain in great detail what happened. She doesn't reply. I don't hear from either of them ever again. Yeah, I just love how the kid had the nerve to tell his mom that OP was being mean to him after he knowingly trashed OP's house like that when he was supposed to be house sitting. And listen guys, I don't ever condone abusing your own kids in any way, but if dad was always yelling at him and maybe once in a while beating his butt for doing dumb stuff like destroying people's homes, again, I don't condone it, but I do understand. I'm a 33-year-old female, and I work for one of the largest airlines in the world. I'm a reservations agent, and my department handles reservations for frequent flyer members who have status. This event occurred 5 years ago, but it's still one of the most entitled things I've ever come across. One evening, I receive a call from a passenger demanding compensation because the flight arrived later than scheduled. Now, the cause of a delay like this is what determines if compensation is offered, what form of compensation will be issued in, and how much. So while searching through the reservation to determine the answer of these questions, I discover the reason the flight was delayed is because the captain had a heart attack mid-flight and he died. The pilot was a male, early 40s, and I believe he had a wife and 3 kids waiting for him at home. So it was heartbreaking he died so young, even more so because he had kids that he would never get to see grow up. Because of the tragedy, the flight was diverted to another city to allow officials to remove his body from the plane. So this passenger calls demanding compensation for the inconvenience of his flight, finally making it to its destination late. He kept yelling that he had been late to this really important business meeting. The guy felt like he should get some sort of massive compensation. He was asking for a full refund of his flight and more, solely because of the inconvenience. He was saying that we could have continued to his destination and then taken the pilot's body off the plane. He continued to say a lot of ignorant and cold-hearted things, always insisting that we inconvenienced him and that he's entitled to massive compensation. I eventually lost my patience with this jackass, and I told him, "Sir, I'm so sorry that you were inconvenienced, but this man was barely 40 years old with a wife and kids, and they feel having to unexpectedly plan and pay for his memorial service to be quite inconvenient as well. But they understand that this was something completely outside of our control. There was nothing we could have done to prevent this." The man just kept on arguing, and he said he didn't care. He continued to try to argue, and he wanted to speak to corporate. He also threatened that he would post this on social media about the horrible customer service and the flight delay. I basically told him, "Good luck with that," and then ended the call. If someone dies and you're inconvenienced, get your head out of your butt. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, guys. If I were in his situation, I would be pretty upset as well. I can understand why the guy was so mad and demanding compensation. Like, did he go about it in an entitled way? Yes, he did. Was he perhaps not wrong about getting some sort of compensation for being massively late? Maybe. All I know is airlines have a really strict policy that no compensation is to be given if anything happens that's out of their control and deemed an act of God, which in this case, it was. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. A lot of people are saying that OP went about it the wrong way, and the guy was and should have been compensated in some sort of way, not just shrugged off because someone died. Leave your thoughts down below. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode where bad bosses are getting absolutely destroyed by workers. And one OP obeys his boss so hard that the guy actually quits. Go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.